Sage Wanderer here. The story I'm about to tell you, I'm reluctant to tell. And the reason being is that of all my stories and all of the true stories that I've told you that have happened in my life, even the stories that I've heard from other people, like the MK Ultra Trainer story, this one to me is I'm more vested in this because this is my story. This is something that happened to me, and I'm only telling this because right now there's a lot of people that are going through what I have gone through and much worse. There are people that are targeted in a much deeper way, and I think because of my true patriotism and my connection and devotion really to the concept behind the United States Marine Corps, that I come from a Marine Corps family, and I come from a family of patriots that have done a lot for this country. I think because of that, they haven't targeted me to such a degree that they do other people that maybe don't have that kind of level of grace behind them. You know, that maybe people that are more seen as outsiders are receiving this targeted individual routine to a much deeper level. But why do I think that I'm a target of surveillance, at least surveillance? Other people are being really harassed and messed with on a much deeper level than I have ever been. And you can hear their stories all over the internet. But I know I believe in my heart, I'll put it that way, that the deep state surveillance system has been watching me, and probably for good reason. First of all, my dad was a Marine that did some black ops, dark training behind enemy lines, in countries where we weren't supposed to be. And, he didn't even really let any of us know about the depth of what he did for our nation until his deathbed, when he started talking about it more, when it was very, very much towards the end of his life. But he always told me, he says, son, they're always going to watch you because, they trained me to be a killer, and they trained me to teach people to be a killer. And one thing the Marines know is that if a Marine can train a total stranger to be a killer, what kind of training would their children receive? So that people who are involved in special operations in the teaching facility and faculties of teaching other people how to do what they do, that your children will always be watched. My father claimed that the government officials told him that at his discharge, when he sat down and received his DDR 54, whatever his discharge papers, that they gave him a little lecture on how he would be watched, and anyone he came in contact would be watched, and his kids would probably always be watched, right down to the grandchildren level, because of his skills as a teacher, and that they wanted to know and watch and pay attention to who he taught, regardless of what he taught. So there's that. But I also have 2 degrees of separation from Timothy McVeigh, the bomber of Oklahoma City. And it's just really by chance. It's my curious nature. I met someone who was pretty close to him, and we had a conversation, and we did it in public. And from that point on, I really feel like they were heavily surveilling me. Back when the technology wasn't as readily available, you have a surveillance device that you pay for. You pay them to have it on you at all times, with a microphone they can turn on and listen whenever they want, or a camera that they can turn on and look at you whenever you want. And that your house is full of these devices, laptops, cell phones, iPads. And of course, there's all of the surveillance cameras that are everywhere, traffic cams, and all of these are being taken into a central location. And AI technology is using this nowadays, and you're being surveilled by robots more than real people. But back when they started watching me more than 20 years ago, they were using real people and more closer related to human intel. And I believe a couple times in my life, I have actually had friends in my life that were not really friends, but people pretending to be friends so that they could get in a little closer and make sure I was still flying straight and right and patriotic and all of that, and not becoming a problem. And so my story, my frightening night, is really after years of already knowing that they've been surveilling me. But never before had I come in physical contact with them in such an open way, and never before had the people surveilling me ever hurt me. There was it was always really passive. It was never really aggressive. It wasn't. They weren't. They were trying to avoid contact for the most part, or at least me knowing about contact. But I made a sudden move from Texas to Colorado. And I think always what they were afraid of from me, because I'm so spiritual and because I wouldn't sell my soul to the devil. I'm pretty sure that's in my main file, that I told them to go take a flying leap, just see my video, Sell My Soul, My True Crossroads Story. That I told them no at an early age. So that bothered them. And I think what they were really always afraid of is that I would become some kind of cult leader, some kind of David Koresh character, because I am a charismatic person and I am articulate, and I do have military grade training from my dad. I mean, bless his heart, it was fun for us to go and learn those things and do those things together. And also there was the fact that I was IQ tested when I was a child in Oregon, and it set off some alarms, and some people from the state came. Anytime you have someone with a high IQ, the state of Oregon always makes contact, and a lot of it is they want to develop that intellect. And so offers were made to my family as a young child to receive free education from the state, based specifically on the fact, all education in Oregon is free, but some advanced education, to make a special note of educating me, even to the point of moving me to the capital so that they could teach me in private study, and things like getting your high school diploma by the age of 12, your bachelor's by 14, your master's by 16, and your doctorate by 18. It was huge. Was it Doogie Howser kind of stuff that they wanted to? And my parents rejected that because they were ministers and preachers, and I was their, I almost started to say trained monkey. Sometimes I felt like that's how they made me feel, because I was their piano player kid, and they needed me on stage, is what, the family business kind of thing. But so I had all of those reasons why the government might watch someone like me. And I think they were always afraid I would start a cult. And I left Texas abruptly because of some romantic complications. And maybe someday I'll feel comfortable enough to talk about that, because that would be a book all on its own, what was going on in my life at that point that I left Texas for Colorado. But I literally left overnight. One day I was in Texas. The next day I was renting an apartment in Denver for no reason. And I got to tell you, I rented an awesome apartment in Denver. It was on the 3rd floor. I had a perfect view off the balcony, and my bedroom window had a patio door that opened up right onto the balcony. So I could lay in bed, look out the window, this huge, sliding glass window, and I could see the Front Range Mountains in Colorado, the Front Range of the Rockies, from my 3rd floor apartment building. And I bought all new furniture. It was awesome. It was one of the few times in my life I got to be free and single. But I had a girlfriend that was trying to get. We eventually moved in together and got engaged and almost got married. But she was coming down and seeing me, coming down and visiting me, basically trying to get me to get an apartment for her kids and my kids, and all of us could move in together, in a house rather, not an apartment. But so one night she was staying there with me, and I gotta say, I never really left the first month that I was in the apartment. I would run to the store and get food, and I'd come right back. And there was a furniture store around the corner. I would run down, because there was a lot of snow, and I didn't get out much. So I was in the apartment all the time, pretty much. And so she came down to visit, and we were sound asleep in bed. And I just suddenly felt motion in the bed with me. And I woke up and sat up and looked over at her, and she was flopping like a fish. Now, I don't know how better to explain to you that it was like she was being electrocuted. It wasn't so much like a grand mal seizure where you tighten up all your muscles, but it was more like open flopping and flipping, and her legs hitting the bed like this. And It freaked me the heck out. I thought my girlfriend was dying, but I'd known her for a really long time. I mean, we grew up together. And so I didn't think she had any health issues that would make her be that way. She was a little bit asthmatic. So, I mean, all I could think of is this, 30-something-year-old woman is having a heart attack or something. So I start trying to wake her up, and she won't wake up. And then it's when when I realize I'm not right, that something is definitely not right with me physically. And I realize that I'm really hot. Like, I just feel like hot tar has been poured over my whole body. And I feel like I'm having a hard time breathing. And there's this weird sensation right at the root of the base of my neck that all I can say is it seems like the water in the spine of my spinal column, the spinal fluid, is sizzling or boiling. That there's this zzz, sensation right at the base of my neck, right in my spine. And then I realize I'm also scared to death. My heart's racing. I feel like it's fight or flight. I feel like I should run away screaming or fight someone. And I'm confused. And then I realize there's a sound in the room. And it sounds like an electromagnet. It sounds like those old microwaves that we used to have when we were kids, when they were so huge that, they took up the whole counter space, and you turn them on and they're like... That kind of deep sound was there, and it was multi-layered with another sound that sounded like radio frequency interference that audio guys get when they have a broken shield on a cable. It kind of sounds like... And then there was definitely that 60 hertz ground loop hum. And so there was this multifaceted electrical sound in the room. And she was flopping like she was being electrocuted. And I, on some level, just felt like I was being attacked. And I was very confused in this moment when I sensed motion out that sliding window by my balcony. And I see two ropes hanging from the balcony. Two ropes hanging side by side from the balcony. And about the time I look at them, they go doop and disappear up. So I jump up and I run to the window. And at this point, I'm like, they're going to shoot me. I don't know why. I could tell you that I just felt like I was under attack and that they were going to come in and get me. I felt like they're coming in the door. They're coming in to get me right now. She's still flopping like a fish. I can't wake her up. This has been going on for at least, it's hard to tell with time like that when you're in a panic mode, but probably at least 30, 45 seconds, maybe a minute since I woke up and I'm figuring out what's going on. I look over, I see the ropes going up, and I walk to the window and I look down, and there's a cab driver going along the road in front of the apartment complex. And he's driving like this, but he is looking up at the roof of my apartment complex, just above me. I'm on the top floor. He's looking at the roof above my third-story level, and he's driving along going, like he cannot believe what he is seeing, and he's going real slow, and he's looking right above where I'm looking at him. He doesn't even see me. He's not looking at my window. He's looking what's just above my window. The only thing that's above my window is the roof of my apartment complex. And that's when I realize, and that with the ropes, they're on the roof. And they're using some kind of weapon on me. Now, I will admit that I had heard of microwave weapons or the Tesla death ray. That it's kind of like HARP on a smaller, more focused level. And it's a microwave electromagnetic weapon. And I can tell you that I did hear about this prior to this night. And in that moment, I went, that's what they're doing. They're using this on me. So I ran to the closet and withdrew an AK-47. I installed the magazine in it and I wrapped the slide. And I screamed out to the room, okay, you want to fight? You got one. If you're coming in here, whatever you're doing to me didn't work. I'm not flopping like a fish. Not only that, I'm pissed. I'm not happy. Don't come in my apartment. Don't you come in here. Turn it off right now. Unless you want to fight, turn it off right now. And just like someone threw a switch, it stopped. And she stopped flopping like a fish. Just like a switch was flipped. So I ground the rifle. I go over, I sit on the bed, and I shake her again. This time she wakes right up. And she seems groggy and sleepy. And I said, are you okay? And of course, as soon as the switch flipped, I felt better too. Just like suddenly the heat was gone, the pain thing in the back of my neck that was hurting, that was like my spinal fluid was frying, it just stopped, just like a switch was flipped. And I woke her up, and are you okay? And she goes, yeah, I'm totally fine. What do you mean? And she was groggy, and I'm like, okay, honey, do you have epilepsy that I don't know about? And she's like, are you crazy? You known me since I was 14. And I said, I know, did you know you were flopping like a fish? That you were just flopping in bed? And she's like, what? And she gets up and sits up now, and I turn the light on. And I'm like, you didn't realize that you're flopping like a fish. And she looked at me like I was absolutely crazy. And I tried to get her to talk to me, and she just kind of sat up in a minute, and she goes, you must have had a bad dream. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. So I laid back down, this time with the rifle grounded next to the bed. And I lay there and I try to analyze everything I just saw. Still, I'm watching out the window still, because I don't see the ropes coming up or down, and I don't really hear anything on the roof. And so I'm starting to doubt my sanity at this point. I'm like, okay, that was so weird. Maybe it was a bad dream. Maybe all that was a bad dream, and I'm just having some kind of weird trip. So I laid back down and I went to sleep. Or tried to. And I was just starting to kind of nod off when that switch flipped again, and I felt that sensation in the back of my neck. That sound happened again. Whoa! And then all layered in together. And like somebody poured hot tar on my head. Heart's racing. Like I just suddenly got scared to death. I sit up in the bed, and I know what's going on. And of course, I realize then she's flopping like a fish again. And I try to wake her up, and she won't wake up. And I try harder, and I'm like, I've got to wake her up this time. And then I grab the rifle, and I go, are you going to kill me tonight or not? If you are, get it on. Get it in here. Let's go. Your weapon isn't working. If you turn that thing up high enough to knock me out like her, you're going to kill me. You're going to kill her is what's going to happen, because she can't take it. So your method, your system, and I'm yelling into the space. I'm yelling into the night, because I know on some level these people can freaking hear me. And I said, look, if you want to put a bug in my apartment or a video camera, just wait till I'm gone. Are you going to arrest me? Is this the night you arrest me? For what? I haven't done anything. I have a clear record. And blip, the switch goes off again. She stops flopping. The freaking out thing goes away. Just like that, I'm suddenly fine. Everything's fine. Weirdest thing in my life. And this time she wakes up on her own, because she said, you know what? I felt like I was flopping. She said, I felt myself flopping right as I woke up. She said, what's wrong with me? And so I laid back down, laid her head on my chest, and I go, okay, look. And I told her the kind of story that I started this video with, that, tell her about the surveillance, about who my dad was, about how I had the misfortune of knowing a guy who knew Timothy McVeigh, and how I felt like I'd been under surveillance, and all the different stories of how, people in my house that didn't belong there, and objects on my property that showed up that looked like cameras that, were on all of this stuff. And I'll tell more stories about the decade or better of surveillance I'd undergone by the time this event happened. And, I explained it to her, and I'm not sure she was believing me, but she was dutifully listening when I realized that right above my bed was a smoke detector, which I'd never really looked at. There's one in every room, and every smoke detector I've ever seen has a 2-stage red-green LED, or it has a red and a green LED. The red comes on if the battery is dead. The green is on if it's working, and the smoke detector works fine. Never in my life have I seen one with a yellow LED. And never in my life have I seen one that had a red, yellow, green LED. There's only one place I've seen a red, yellow, green LED in all of technology, me personally, and that's on the input channel of an audio mixer, so that you can check your level without having to have a dial that does this and tells you where it is. Or sometimes they're staged LEDs that go up and down. But your basic cheap input on most all audio mixers is a tri-stage, 3-stage, red, yellow, green LED. Green flashing means you're getting signal. Green solid means you're getting a good solid signal. Flashing yellow means you're approaching busting 0, and when it stays red solid or flashes red, you're breaking 0, which means you're getting distortion, audio distortion on the input. And when it goes solid red, that means it's distorting. So I'm an audio guy. And I realized that as I'm sitting here laying in bed looking up at my smoke detector talking to my girlfriend, that this thing is flashing green, flashing green. So I'm like, that's almost like, why is that flashing green rhythmically with my voice as my voice speaks? Why is it doing that? So I'm looking at it, and I decided to test it. So I raised my voice, and now it goes on solid green, and I'm talking louder, and now it's solid green. The LED's solid green. And I go like this, and and then the yellow, and then I go, ah, and it's red. And of course, she's freaking out. She's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, shh, look. And I started talking again, and then I got louder and made it go on green, and then I was making it go red, and back down to green, go red. When we stopped talking, the light went off. It was an audio input that only looked like a smoke detector. It was a recording device. They were listening to me. Did they come that night to try to arrest me? Was that what it was about? I don't know why. I didn't do anything but move suddenly. Did it alarm them to the point where they felt like they needed video inside of my apartment? Why did they feel like they needed to take it to the next level if they already had my apartment bugged? I'll never know the answers to those questions. I do know this, that she believed me in that moment for certain. She knew that what she was seeing just as well as I did. And we left, and we went to a place called Clear Creek Canyon, where really no audio signal, nothing can come in and out of the canyon. It's stone walls, there's a river in the bottom and a little road that runs along it, and there is no cell phone service in there. So no information can get in or out of that canyon. And we went in there, left our phones locked up in the car, went down by the river where it was roaring, and then we had a conversation about what had happened, and we put it together. And because we want to be able to talk about it without them hearing about it. And maybe I'm taking a huge risk in talking about this, but I will say this, a lot of people have had similar experiences and they're talking about it. And what I believe they were doing was trying to put us both in that knocked out cold, flopping position so that they could walk around in my apartment and wire it up with whatever they needed and look through my bags and maybe check and see, I don't know. They wanted to look inside my apartment. And they didn't care that I was there, and they thought their little weapon, their little machine, their little Tesla death ray microwave gun was going to put me in the same position as it did her. The difference is they didn't account for the fact that I'm very physically hardy. I always have been. I'm just made out of a little tougher stuff than your average Joe. I have a high pain threshold. I've never been knocked out except to have my wisdom teeth removed in my whole life. And I mean, I have been, I've been in car wrecks, I've been hit, I've been beat up, and I've never been knocked out. And bicycle crashes, I mean, just all kinds of things. We heard some of the stories. So, it didn't work on me. It didn't work on us equally. And I think they probably quit messing with me when I said, look, if you turn that up enough to knock me out, it's going to kill her. Because we are not made out of the same stuff, me and her. And so I know a lot of people have experienced this microwave weapon that I call the Tesla death ray. And I feel like if there was more levels to it, that they could have just turned it up and killed us both. I believe the second attack was stronger than the first attack. That the second attack was an attempt to knock me out, but I wasn't about to be knocked out by this thing. And if they did get enough energy, it probably would have hurt her or cause brain damage. I don't know what this machine does when you turn it up too high, but I will tell you this, I know what it feels like, and I don't want to get hit with it again, because it doesn't just attack you physically, it attacks you mentally, spiritually. That adrenaline dump it was making, I mean, I would sit and use my Zen martial arts, centering method in that moment when that was happening to go and breathe, but I could not stop my heart from beating so fast, and the feeling that I needed to run away was pretty strong form of torture, to tell you the truth, to have that happen to you for no reason. So having said that, believe my story or not, If you don't believe me, then you won't believe all the other stories of people who've experienced this weapon and experienced this surveillance system. And I simply hope that now that Snowden has blown the whistle on this, and we have seen the reality of this deep state, how it's actually trying to take down an elected president right now. I think we've seen how the press is completely not just complacent, but involved in this conspiracy to control the masses, that we are being manipulated on so many levels, and the eventual goal is to enslave us all. And, they have powerful weapons that we don't understand, and this Tesla death ray is one of them. And I hope that you never get one pointed at you. And I keep saying, like I've always said, is the deep state's got nothing to worry from me unless they want to kill me, and then I'll fight back like any human being, like any animal would. And I'm not bad at fighting back, thanks to the old Marine and some other guys I've known along the way. But anyway, God save our republic.